matter how many logs on the fire, there's still the same chill in the air. And the past clouds in to smother me at the side of my father's chair. I'm a boy once again with a dream, yet a man disappointed to find I thought he'd escaped, I thought I'd break free. You can never leave some things behind. I can see Dad asleep in this chair. The scent of his pipe still hangs in the air. Even though he's been gone nigh on 20 years, the room is still heavy with the fights and the tears. Home again, home again, home again. I thought it would be somehow different, but it feels no different at all. I've traveled the world, I'm somebody now, yet here I am feeling so small. Home again, home again, home again, home again. Well, I expect you're wondering what's brought me back here, to this place, to the place of my childhood. Well, it seems sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. Sometimes life has to come full circle. You don't believe me. You think our lives are forever onwards and upwards until we reach that happy ending. Yeah, I used to think like that too. Listen, I want to tell you a story. I'll let you decide if it has a happy ending. Once upon a time, there was a boy who dreamed of escaping his father's farm. For his 14th birthday, his father gave him a pair of fattening pigs. The boy nurtured these pigs, and each year they bore him a fine litter of piglets. Each year he would take them to market for a handful of gold. He hoarded all the gold, saving it for the day when he'd leave home to make his way in the world. To make his way in the world. Let me tell you, I know all about that. I've always been a driven man from the time that I was young. Taught myself to better myself, to prove that they were wrong, that I was strong, that I was strong. With every forward step I took, ambition burned like fire. With every accolade I won, I set my sights yet high. Had to keep moving, still I had to keep moving. Had to stay free. I've been running on towards the light, traveling by day and by night. I was so sure which path to follow, but everything I've done, each goal I've won, turned out to be hollow. I promised there'd be no regrets as I rode towards the sun. I kept my eyes arise and bound, my journey never done. I kept on. I kept on. Seems to be no closer now than it was when I began. My destination stayed as far, the faster that I ran. I had to keep moving, still I had to keep moving, had to stay free. I've been running on towards the light, traveling by day and by night, so sure which path to follow, but through the joy and pain, everything I've gained turned out to be simply hollow. Well, anyway, where was I? One day, when the farmer's son was walking in the forest, just before sunset, he caught sight of a beautiful woman. He called out to her, but she disappeared into the shadows between the trees. From that day on, when his chores on the farm were complete, he would climb up the mountainside, hoping to catch sight of her. But day after day, he would return home disappointed. The next time he went to market to sell his piglets, he spent all the money he'd saved on a beautiful velvet cloak, black as night and lined with silk as red as blood. He paid over the money, knowing that it would delay him leaving home to make his fortune, perhaps forever. The following day, he carried it up the mountainside and laid it where he'd first spied the maiden, in a clearing beside a spring. He returned to the same spot the following day, only to discover that the cloak had gone. He decided to wait, as still as a mouse beside the water in the sunshine, to see what would happen. Eventually, he saw a flash of movement out of the corner of his eye. When he peered into the darkness of the forest, he could see nothing. He held his breath, and in that moment, even the birds seemed to stop singing. He heard the snap of a twig behind him, and he whirled round. Standing before him, wearing the cloak he had bought for her, was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. The mere sight of her made his heart beat faster, and he was finding it hard to catch his breath. There was a moment's pause while they gazed at one another. She made as if to leave. And before you ask, yes, I do believe in love at first sight. I also know about lust at first sight, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. I knew from the moment you looked at me, that was the moment I fell into your arms, like a child in a storybook, forever under your spell. As we danced through the night, my head gave up the fight. If this feeling was magic or trickery, I was too giddy to tell. Hearts beat fast, hands may touch, tensions rise almost too much, and I'll never feel the same again now. And this moment, it felt like enough for me, though it felt it would last for all time, till we grew old, like the end of a fairy tale. You would always be mine. We would dance through the years, my heart be forever here. And when our kids all have up and grown, our love will continue to shine. That's how I felt when I first met you. But everything seemed to go wrong after that. In the church, on our wedding day, when I saw you, I thought everything would be all right. Except something was missing. Something was always missing. And when our kids all have up and grown, our love So the young lad had given her everything he had. "Please stay," he begged. "I just want to talk." The woman turned back, seemed to hesitate for a moment, and then sat on a moss-covered boulder. Her eyes never left his face. She pulled the cloak a little tighter around her. "Jürgen," she said. So eager was he to speak with her, he didn't have time to be surprised that she knew his name. "I've been looking for you," he said. "Have you?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Ever since I saw you that evening in the forest, I've wanted to see you again. You're all I've been able to think about, and I spent everything I have on that beautiful cloak so that you would know how much I admire you. I've given you everything I have." When I look back through the years, try to see beyond the laughter and the tears, the times my head began to spin. It's clear love needs to be all in. When I close my eyes to see what went wrong between my love affairs and me, the times we fought but couldn't win, it's clear love needs to be all in. And I tried so hard to hide that there always was a part of me I kept locked deep inside. For that I'm sorry. For that I'm sorry. As the day draws to a close and I stand behind this lonely life I chose, it's clear the problem lies within. Never could commit, never could begin. To give it all just seemed like to give in. But now it's clear love needs to be all in. To give it all just seems like to give in. But now I know love needs to be all in. All his hopes and dreams tumble out of him. He couldn't have stopped himself if he tried. He wanted to tell her about his plans for the future, how he dreamed of leaving the valley and how he longed to travel the world. While they talked, all else was forgotten, and the glade filled with the sound of gentle laughter. When at last they fell silent, it was the silence of two hearts beating as one. Jürgen noticed that night was falling. A whole day had gone past. It's getting dark. I must leave the forest. Come home with me. This is my home. I cannot leave, she replied, but you could stay. She opened her cloak to enfold him in a passionate embrace. Jürgen's heart felt as if it would burst. She suddenly broke away. What is it? He cried. If you stay with me for even one night, you can never leave. Then I will stay, he replied. Even if it means never being able to leave the valley, what about your future? The boy thought for a moment. Let me stay, he repeated. I'm in love with you. You think you are in love with me, she answered. But how can you be sure? You won't be the first mortal to think that they have fallen in love with one of my kind, a Huldra. We capture mortals' hearts for sport. There was a pause. The youth had tears in his eyes and was so downcast she took pity on him. Tomorrow, if you still wish it, meet with me here, and after we shall never be parted. Before he could summon a response, she turned and was gone. He thought he caught a glimpse of a tail swishing beneath her cloak. He called after her, to no avail. As darkness fell, he descended the mountainside, consoling himself with the fact that he would see her the following day. But when he returned to the clearing the following day, she was nowhere to be found. Instead, lying on the ground was the cloak, neatly folded. Jürgen wept, for he wanted to be with the Huldra more than anything. Every morning, for 100 days, he would climb up the mountain, and every evening he would return home disconsolate. The darkest moments in my life were the times I couldn't see that road that stretches out ahead, right in front of me. I have to keep moving. I have to keep moving. I have to stay free. I've been running on towards the light, traveling by day and by night. So there's been a detour or two, but everything I've done in my life, the toil and strife, brings me to you. Brings me to you. On the 100th day, he received a letter from a distant relative, offering him business on the other side of the world. This opportunity depended on him being able to travel at his own expense, and Jürgen had spent everything he had on the cloak for the Huldra. That day, as usual, he climbed up the mountain to look for her. In the clearing, he found a bag of gold, just the amount he needed. This made him weep afresh, for he finally understood her gift to him. The young man took the gold, travelled the world, made his fortune, and lived happily ever after. Until now. Boy once again with a dream, with a life that is yet to unwind. As hard as it seems, as hard as you try, you can never leave some things behind. Home again, home again, home again. home again.